Ex-wife had a 7-year affair with her best friend's husband. Dear True Story, my name is Christopher. I never thought I'd write in, but I've been listening to your channel for a while now. Every video reminds me of how many of us men are suffering in silence. I guess I just want to tell my story too. Maybe it'll help someone out there avoid what I went through. This is the story of how I gave everything I had to a woman who was living a double life. How I raised 2 beautiful kids that I thought were mine. How I found out they weren't. And how I somehow managed to walk away without burning the entire world down around me. Let me take you back to the beginning. The beginning, how we met. I met my ex-wife Amanda in college. We were both juniors, both business majors. She was the type of woman who turned heads when she walked into a room, not because she was flashy, but because she carried herself with this natural charm. She had a laugh that made you feel warm, like you were part of some inside joke. I was just a regular guy, quiet, not very flashy, not the kind of guy most women noticed first, but she noticed me. We got paired together for a group project in one of our business classes. I remember she joked that I looked like I hadn't slept in a week, and I told her that was because I was working 2 part-time jobs to pay tuition. That's what started our first real conversation. She admired my work ethic, or at least she said she did. We started dating not long after that. It felt right. She was affectionate, encouraging, and seemed to value who I was. I thought I hit the jackpot. I came from a simple background. My mom was a school teacher. My dad worked in construction before passing when I was 17. I didn't come from money or connections. Amanda, on the other hand, came from a middle-class family, but she was down to earth, or so I believed. After graduation, we moved in together and got married 2 years later. I had just started working at a logistics company, and she landed a job in marketing. We weren't rolling in money, but we were doing okay. We saved up for a down payment on a modest house. I remember painting the baby's room myself, light blue. That's what she wanted. We named him Eli. A few years later, our second son, Noah, came along. Those boys became my whole world, her best friend. Amanda's best friend was a woman named Melanie. They'd been friends since high school. Melanie was outgoing, sarcastic, and always had a drink in her hand when we had get-togethers. Her husband, Jake, was a contractor. We all hung out often, barbecues, birthdays, holidays. Looking back now, there were signs. Too many times I'd catch Amanda texting late at night, and when I walked in the room, she'd tilt the phone away. If I asked who it was, she'd casually say it was Melanie or something work-related. I had no reason not to believe her. Melanie was her best friend. They were always talking, always planning something, always whispering. I remember this one time I came home early from work and found Amanda sitting on the back patio giggling on the phone. When she saw me, she looked startled. She hung up quickly and told me it was Melanie telling a ridiculous story about Jake. I smiled. I believed her, because that's what you do when you trust someone. The growing distance. Around year 6 or 7 of our marriage, Amanda started pulling away from me emotionally and physically. She blamed it on stress, on work, on raising 2 kids. I tried to be understanding. I worked long hours to provide. I still came home and helped with the kids, cooked, cleaned, did bedtime stories, but she became colder and more distant. When I brought it up, she'd accuse me of being dramatic. She said I was imagining things. I started doubting myself. Maybe I was. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe she was just tired. I took on more of the load to give her space. Around that same time, Jake and Melanie's marriage started showing cracks. Melanie would complain about him during girls' nights and even in front of Amanda. I remember her once saying, "Jake's always disappearing for hours. Who knows what he's doing?" Ironic, isn't it? The discovery. The truth came out in the ugliest way. About a year ago, Eli, my oldest, got injured playing basketball. He needed some blood work, nothing serious. But the doctor noticed something strange. with the blood type compatibility and suggested we double check some things. At first, I thought nothing of it until I did a home paternity test just to be sure. I had this weird gut feeling and I wanted to shake it. I just wanted it to confirm what I already knew, that I was his father. Except I wasn't. The test said I had a 0% chance of being Eli's biological father. I sat in the bathroom staring at the result, feeling like the walls were closing in. I tested Noah next. Same result. Neither of them were mine. I didn't confront Amanda right away. I needed time to breathe, time to wrap my head around what this meant. For me. For them. A week later, I sat her down and told her I had something serious to talk about. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just showed her the results. Her face went pale. She didn't even deny it. What came out of her mouth next made my blood run cold. It was Jake. I remember going still, completely still. I asked her, Jake, as in Melanie's Jake. She nodded. They'd been having an affair on and off for 7 years. 7 years. It started after a drunken night at a party, she said. One night turned into months, months into years. They were both unhappy in their marriages, and somehow they justified destroying 2 families over and over again. Melanie had no idea. And the kicker? She didn't even know which kid was Jake's. It could be both. She just never wanted to find out. The fallout. I told her I wanted a divorce immediately. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just stood up, packed a bag, and left the house that night. I stayed with a buddy from work for a few weeks while I figured out my next steps. Amanda tried to call. She tried to say the boys still needed me. She told me I was still dad. That DNA didn't change that I'd been there since day one, but she missed the point. It wasn't just about paternity. It was about betrayal. 7 years of it. You don't accidentally fall on the same man multiple times for almost a decade. You don't accidentally raise kids on lies and then expect me to keep playing house. I lawyered up. The hardest part of the divorce wasn't splitting assets or dealing with Amanda. It was the kids. I'd raised those boys, taught them how to ride bikes, stayed up with them when they had the flu, coached their little league games. I was their father in every way that counted, except the one that mattered legally. Because I wasn't their biological father, I had no rights. My lawyer explained that unless I wanted to fight for visitation and potentially pay child support, I could walk away clean. That choice destroyed me. I knew if I stayed involved, Amanda would use them to manipulate me forever. So I walked away. I said goodbye to the boys. I told them I loved them, that I'd always care about them, but that Daddy had to go away. They didn't understand. They cried. I cried harder. It was the worst day of my life. Moving forward, it's been about 14 months since I finalized the divorce. I haven't spoken to Amanda since. I haven't seen the boys either, not by choice, but because I knew I had to cut ties completely to start healing. Staying connected to that house, that lie, that false reality, it would have killed me slowly. I went to therapy. I hit the gym. I took up hiking. I changed my phone number. I changed jobs. I'm not the same man I was before all this happened, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe sometimes when something breaks you, you get to decide how you rebuild. I've started dating again, casually. I'm not looking for anything serious, not right now. And trust is hard to give when you've had the floor ripped out from under you. Sometimes I wonder how the boys are doing. I hope Amanda's not filling their heads with lies. I hope they're loved. That's the part that still hurts. Not seeing their faces in the morning, not hearing them call me Dad. But I also know this, I didn't leave them. I left her. I left the lies. Final thoughts. To every man listening, here's what I've learned. If your gut is telling you something is off, pay attention. Don't let love blind you to your own reality. Don't ignore the red flags because you want the dream so badly. The dream can become a nightmare real fast. Get a paternity test. No matter how awkward it feels, do it. It's your right. Don't let anyone guilt you into staying in a situation where your soul is dying. And finally, protect your peace at all costs. You only get one life. Don't waste it living someone else's lie. Thank you, True Story, for giving men a platform to speak the truth. I've been silent for too long, but not anymore. Follow up. No one really knows the pain I'm in. Dear True Story, thank you for sharing my story. I never thought I'd get this much off my chest, and honestly, even after sending that first email, it didn't make me feel lighter. In fact, it stirred up more than I expected. Emotions I thought I had buried came clawing back up. I had to take a long walk the night after I hit send because for the first time in months, I felt exposed, like I'd finally peeled off the mask I'd been wearing since the day I walked out that door. Since then, I've had time to reflect, and there's one truth that hits me harder than anything else. No one really knows the pain I'm in. Not my friends, not my coworkers, not even the therapist I've been seeing twice a week. It's not their fault. They care, but they don't know. They can't feel the depth of what it means to raise children as your own. Love them with every part of your soul, and then one day realize you were just a stand-in, a substitute, a placeholder for another man. Therapy isn't a magic fix. After the dust settled from the divorce, I finally took the advice of one of the few friends who stuck around and found a therapist. Her name is Rachel. Mid-40s, calm voice, eyes that don't flinch no matter what I say. I sat in her office during our first session and said what I had rehearsed in the car. I'm here because I don't know how to feel human anymore. She nodded and asked, "Do you want to start by telling me what's happened?" And just like that, I told a stranger the story of my destruction. I told her about Amanda, about Jake, about the boys, about the test results that turned my world to ash. I expected to feel stupid afterward, weak even, but instead I felt raw, like my soul had been scraped down to the bone. Rachel asked me how I was sleeping. "I'm not," I said. "I have dreams where they're calling me daddy again, where they're asking me why I left. Sometimes I wake up with my heart racing, soaked in sweat. Sometimes I stay up all night sitting on the edge of my bed, wondering if I should have fought harder to stay in their lives. But I know the truth. Staying would have meant endless manipulation, endless reminders that I wasn't really their father, just the guy who filled the gap while Amanda cheated her way through a decade of marriage. Rachel told me I'm experiencing ambiguous grief, the pain of losing something that isn't technically gone. The boys are still alive. Amanda is still out there. But the life I thought I had, the future I envisioned, dead. There's no funeral for betrayal, no grave to visit, just silence. People say the dumbest things. You know what hurts almost as much as the betrayal? The reactions I get when I open up to people. You were such a good dad, though. Why walk away? You could have stayed in their lives. DNA doesn't matter. She made a mistake. 7 years is a long time, but maybe there's something deeper there. No. Just no. People don't understand that every time I looked into those boys' eyes after the truth came out, I saw the man who took everything from me. I saw Jake, a man I grilled burgers with, watched football with, a man who smiled in my face while sleeping with my wife and fathering my children behind my back. They expect me to rise above it. Be the bigger man, forgive. Because that's what a good guy does, right? But what about the fact that Amanda stole my fatherhood from me? That for over a decade, I shaped my life around a lie? What about the birthdays, the sleepless nights, the scraped knees, the lullabies? Do those count for nothing? When I tried to explain this to a coworker I trusted, he actually said, "At least you got to experience being a dad." Experience being a dad? Like I took a damn vacation. Like it was a trial run. I left that conversation feeling smaller than ever. I walked out of the office, sat in my car, and cried for the first time in months. That kind of grief doesn't show on the surface. There are no visible wounds. But inside, it's like someone reached into my chest and ripped out my heart with a grin on their face. The guilt I can't shake. What I haven't said out loud, not even to Rachel, is this. I feel guilty for not being stronger. I replay the last day I saw the boys. I remember Eli hugging me tightly saying, "When are you coming back, Daddy?" And I didn't have an answer. I told him I loved him, that I'd always be proud of him, that he was brave and smart and kind. I kissed Noah on the forehead and told him to always protect his brother. He nodded like he understood, but he was only 5. What does a 5-year-old know about betrayal? The guilt eats at me. I chose to leave. I had to. But the moment I closed that door, I felt like the worst human being on earth. Not because I left Amanda. She earned every ounce of loneliness coming her way, but because I left them. And even though I know they weren't mine by blood, my heart doesn't care. My heart still wakes up in the middle of the night expecting to hear their voices. It still skips when I see a little boy in a Spider-Man backpack that looks just like Noah's used to. It still breaks every time I see a dad coaching his son's game or giving him a high five on the sidewalk. I wonder if the boys think I abandoned them. I wonder if Amanda told them the truth or painted me as the villain. What hurts most is not knowing what they believe. Rage I never knew I had. Therapy helped me process a lot, but one emotion caught me off guard. Rage. I never saw myself as an angry man. But in one session, I started venting about how Amanda and Jake are probably living their lives now, laughing, holding hands, playing house with the boys like they didn't rip 2 families apart. And I just snapped. I yelled. I punched the couch cushion beside me. I stood up and walked around the room, shaking, breathing hard. Rachel didn't interrupt. She let me have that moment. When I sat down again, hands trembling, I said, "They get to keep everything, and I'm left with nothing." She told me it was okay to feel that I needed to feel that pretending I'm fine only buries the pain deeper. But that anger still lives inside me, not all the time, but it flares up at the worst moments, like when I see a Father's Day commercial, or when I drive past the park we used to take the boys to on Saturdays, or when someone says, "Everything happens for a reason." What reason could possibly justify this? Small moments of healing. Despite all this, there have been moments of clarity, of peace. One day I was hiking this trail about an hour out of town. It's a place Rachel recommended to clear my mind. At the summit, I looked out over the valley below. It was quiet, wind brushing against my face, birds chirping, and for the first time in forever, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I stood there for almost an hour, just breathing, just existing. It didn't fix anything, but it reminded me that life still exists outside of pain, that there's still beauty in the world, even if I'm not ready to see all of it yet. I started writing in a journal. Rachel said it helps organize thoughts. Some entries are angry. Some are just me repeating why over and over. Others are letters to the boys that I'll never send. I tell them about my day, about how I miss them, about how proud I am of them, even now. I don't know if it's helping, but it's something. And right now, something is better than nothing. A message to the men listening. To the men out there, especially the ones who've been betrayed, let me say this. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not less of a man because you hurt. You can lift weights, make money, build businesses, and still be broken inside. Betrayal doesn't care how tough you are. It strips you down, kicks you in the teeth, and dares you to get back up. But I'm telling you, do it anyway. Get up, go to therapy, scream into the void if you have to, write, cry, heal. Because if you stay in that darkness, you'll forget who you are. You'll forget that you were someone before the betrayal. that you still have value, that your story doesn't end with her lies. I know what it's like to stare at a bottle at 2 a.m. I know what it's like to consider things you swore you'd never do. I've been there, but you're still here, so am I. And that means there's still time to rebuild. Where I stand now, I'm not okay. Not fully. I don't pretend to be. I still grieve the boys every single day. I still hate Amanda for what she did. I still wonder if I'll ever feel safe loving again. But I've also learned that pain carves out space. And what you fill that space with, that's up to you. I'm trying to fill mine with purpose, with honesty, with the truth. Thank you, True Story, for giving me a place to speak it. Until next time.